Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, which as I've told you many a time is the Swedish craft beer capital. And we're going to return to a brewery that I haven't had anything from in a good number of years actually, but these guys always did some really interesting high alcohol dark beers actually. It was always the winter beers that I looked out for from this brewery. So for this one we are going to return to Mohawk Brewing Company once again, and we're having a taste of the Zoot, which is a rye IPA coming in at 6.9% ABV. So this is a style that you don't see all that often, and that was one of the reasons that it piqued my interest. But for a long time, or for quite a while actually, I hadn't seen anything from Mohawk, and I saw this one come in on the 1st of November 2019. I can't remember if this one was released as part of the Local and Småsikt or whether it was released as part of the Juldrika, but really curious to see how this one turns out. As I say, a style you don't see too often in a brewery that I haven't encountered for quite some time, so the makings of a good review I think. But yeah, we'll see how we get on with this one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Mohawk Brewing Company before. I believe I've done about 4 or 5 from them, and hopefully I can add some more in the fairly near future because their beers are a little bit more accessible again now. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and watch and search for beer rather based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Mohawk Brewing Company. So Mohawk Brewing Company are a gypsy brewery, or a virtual brewery as they like to call themselves, and it was founded by Stefan Gustafsson, who's quite a distinctive character actually. He's pretty tall. I mean, he must be about 190 odd centimetres when you meet him, and he's got a very black mohawk, if you like. It's quite a big tall mohawk, so you can't really miss this guy if you see him at a beer festival. He is a very nice chap when I met him. But he started home brewing back in the 1980s because he was a poor student, and also because the range of beers in Sweden was very poor at a time, and he said that going to Belgium and the Netherlands was really a kind of eye-opener for him. So he worked for a period of time as a brewer at Grebbestads Brewery, and then he started importing beers into Sweden, and this evolved to become Wicked Wines, which was founded officially back in 2000 along with Andreas Felt. And this is one of the biggest suppliers actually of the imported beers, the American things mainly, to Systembolaget these days. So a lot of the American and Belgian beers and things like that do come through Wicked Wines. But he was later inspired to form Mohawk Brewery in 2010 after seeing the success of the gypsy brewers of Copenhagen, the likes of Mikkeller, Evil Twin, and then later on Toul of course. And the company itself, Mohawk Brewing Company, is of course partly owned by Wicked Wines. So they've brewed their beers in a variety of places, including the Proefbrouwerij in Locriste Heifte, just outside of Ghent in Belgium, where Mikkeller and a few others were brewing their beers, and also some beers have been brewed at Coppersmiths Brewery and at Lake Brewery here in Sweden. And for a while the main production was taking place at Vega Brewery in Gothenburg, but when they expanded they had no room for other brewers in their brewery anymore. So Mohawk went for about 11 months without much production really, and then until this was lasted I think until August of 2017 when they started brewing their beers at Spike Brewery. But they now have a Brazilian brewer on board by the name of Bernardo Gava, and he's working for both Spike Brewery and for Mohawk. And in 2018 they managed to brew around 30,000 litres of beer per year, and they're planning to hit 60,000 litres of beer this year over 2019, and I think there's a further kind of expansion planned over 2019. By the sounds of the articles that I was reading on beernews.se, where I get most of this information from, it sounds like they actually own some of their own tanks and things like that, and it's, you know, they're just kind of sharing the actual brewing apparatus at Spike Brewery. So yeah, I'd be curious to know how that would work actually. But as of November 2019, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced just short of 170 different types of beers. My impressions of Mohawk Brewing so far, I mean, I'm sure I tried one double IPA from them, which was really pretty solid actually. But you know, the thing that everyone used to rave about with Mohawk Brewing was the winter beers like the Blizzard, and they had an Imperial Brown I think that I tried at one point too, which was really nice. So the high alcohol and dark beers from Mohawk have always been really good, but from what I understand they've been trying some New England IPAs and stuff these days, and if it's the same brewer that is it's Spike Brewing, he'll have some input into the recipe I'm sure, then you probably are going to get some really nice beers from Mohawk and that side of things as well. So I need to make sure that I review a couple of those for you at some point in the near future. But it looks like this kind of collaboration is going to continue for the next while actually. So yeah, you'll definitely be seeing some more Mohawk reviews over the next few weeks and months and all of that sort of thing. So keep an eye out for those. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Mohawk Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. Following them on Facebook and Instagram will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. And of course, you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages for all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. The Mohawk cans and bottles and stuff, of course, are distinctive for this sort of typecast label that they have actually. It says on the side here, elegant, strongly coloured and spicy. This beer, it's basically an extravagant style that we're doing again. So pale malt, wheat malt and rye malt in this one, along with, it's basically with a little bit of a taste of a New England IPA, or a normal New England IPA. So Citra, Mosaic and Columbus complete this with fruit and spiciness. So yeah, so basically yeah, pale malt and wheat malt in this one along with some rye, and then Citra, Mosaic and Columbus hops. Citra and Mosaic of course will probably be used as the main kind of aroma hops, and Columbus will be used as the bittering hop. It has that kind of distinctive spicy sort of bitterness to it. Citra of course we know for being mainly mangoes and a few other complexities, and Mosaic is mainly a kind of tangerine orange sort of thing with a little bit of a few complexities to it as well. But yeah, nicely presented can, 330 millilitres this one, and there you can see the Mohawk Brewing roundel on there as well. I need to, yeah, there's a few words in there that are troublesome for my Swedish actually. That's why I didn't do it all the way. Swedish is still improving, and I'll be sitting my thesis tests maybe in about a year or something like that. We'll need to see before I become a citizen anyway, because I think that's only right. But when you open this beer up, I'll tell you something, you really get some lovely juicy fruity aromas out of this. So yeah, we'll see how we get on with this. So basically a New England IPA with a bit of rye in it by the sounds of what they were saying on the label. So we'll just need to let that head calm down a little bit. That'll take a second or two to go away. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, as you'd expect from a rye IPA, you do expect it to have a little bit more colour. This one's poured a lovely, almost blood orange kind of colour actually. You can see there's a solid 1.5 finger frothy, kind of off-white head in this one. It's sort of a creamy, very lightly beige colour this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it looks pretty damn good, I have to say. The colour of that beer is absolutely beautiful. If I put my fingers behind it, there you can see it is pretty damn hazy. There's not a lot of transparency to this beer. So let's just put the last little bit of it in, and we'll get on with looking at the aroma then. That's a pretty much perfect pour there, I have to say. So yeah, so yeah, lovely looking beer this one. Nothing overly surprising about this when you consider what style it is. Usually the rye IPAs are a little bit darker than this, but obviously you can see the New England influence with this one, especially when it's got the wheat malt. It's going to turn out hazy like this. So let's have a closer look at that aroma then and just see how we get on. Oh yeah, no, that's really nice. You could smell some of the fruity notes coming out of this beer as soon as you opened it up. But for me, this one, it's the fruitiness that really jumps out at you straight away. So definitely some nice big sort of tangerine oranges there, and those are going to be amplified a bit by the fact that rye is in the malt base. It's quite a favourite kind of pairing of brewers actually to put more orangey hops like you know, Amarillo, Mosaic, I guess Azaka and Sabro and things like that as well. You've also got Pacifica and is it Waiti from New Zealand that's also a big orangey hop as well. You know, you've got these lovely big orangey hops, Mandarina Bavera from Germany of course too. Orangey flavoured hops and aroma hops are quite a favourite when it comes to making rye IPAs. The orangey flavour goes really nicely with it. So big, oily, juicy oranges coming out of this one. That'll be the Mosaic of course. underneath you can get a little bit of the tropical fruit in there. You can smell a little bit of the mango from the Citra hop, but for me it's really the orangey side of things that dominates the aroma here. There's maybe a little teeny bit of like a kind of darker grapefruity note as well, and sometimes you can get that from Citra depending on what you mix it with. But to me, the fruity side of this beer really is very orangey and almost marmaladey, to be honest with you. This throws me back a little bit to a beer by Tempest Brewery back home in Scotland, the Marmalade on Rye, and that's a beautiful double IPA. If any of you watching, because probably it's mostly Swedes watching this this video right enough, but if any of you ever go to Scotland, check out Tempest Brewing Company, probably the best brewery in Scotland at the moment. And they're they have a beautiful old school West Coast rye IPA, and it's Marmalade on Rye. It's a very nostalgic beer for me. I think it was the first one from Tempest that I tried actually, or the original one was a single IPA, and then they did it up to a double IPA, which was beautiful. This beer really reminds me a lot of that one actually, so I'm hoping that it can match that in terms of the flavour. But yeah, underneath that kind of hoppy side of things, you can definitely pick up the rye. You can smell the sort of almost brown rye bready type quality out of this. I loved eating rye bread when I lived in Germany. And you can smell a bit of the kind of smoother wheaty notes in there as well. And other than that, the malt base there's a wee touch of a kind of biscuity, brown sugary sort of thing in there. I'm not sure whether it's kind of sweet enough to be caramel or whether it is just a little bit of a biscuit, but there's definitely some sort of sweetness in that malt base there as well. But overall, the malty side of things in this is really pretty nice actually. I always like it when you've got a beer that's well balanced in its aroma from the hops and from the malts actually. I really like that. On the green side of the hops, for me, it's not, you do get a little bit of a spicy floral aromaticity out of this one. And it is quite distinctive of Columbus. As I say, you always get that spicy note out of Columbus, but to me it actually the spiciness is at the back of the nose, but as you get more towards the kind of front of the nose, if you like, it's more sort of grassy and things like that too. So quite a big, it's a really well balanced aroma, this one. There's a lot of stuff going on in it. And that's one of the great things about the rye IPA, is it does have a few layers of complexity and things to it, but a really nice smelling beer, this one, and a little bit nostalgic for me. Like I say, Marmalade on Rye from Tempest Brewing in Galashiels back home in Scotland. Really interesting one. So yeah, let's take a taste of this one then and see how we get on. As I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma before you get stuck in, but we're going to try this beer now. This one is the Zoot 6.9% rye IPA. More like a New England rye IPA apparently, from Mohawk Brewing, a gypsy brewery based in Gothenburg here in Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål. That's pretty damn good, I have to say. Yeah, that's interesting, that actually. It does, it comes in like a rye IPA, and it almost feels a little bit more like a kind of classic West Coasty rye IPA rather than anything else. But then, as you move into the aftertaste, that's when it shows its New England colours, definitely. That's a really quite curious beer. I mean, first impressions is, this is really nice. It gets a thumbs up from me. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again. I really quite like this. Yeah, that's really nicely done, I have to say. I need to check out the other IPAs and stuff from Spike Brewing now. I mean, based on how good this one is, I'm sure the other ones will be quite interesting too. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. So what you're going to notice, as I said, straight away when you take this beer in, it comes across as a little bit more wet and oily, and then the beer just kind of transitions and it becomes big and sort of thick and smooth in the aftertaste. I mean, straight away with this one, you can feel the sort of wheat and the rye having a go at just blanketing the middle of your tongue, and I'd say it starts to lean a little bit more towards the wheaty side of things, towards the front of the palate, and I think the rye is sitting a little bit more towards the back, and you can feel the sort of back sides of your palate just drying out that little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste actually. So that's a kind of interesting point to make about this one. So yeah, I like how that malt base is balanced actually. It's interesting how the rye and the wheat interact, because it's not quite as simple as I was putting it there a minute ago. As I say, the rye is just a little bit more obvious at the back of the palate, and the sort of wheaty aspects are a bit more noticeable towards the front of it too. But in the centre of your palate, it's almost like you've got this kind of circle in the middle of your palate, and that's where you get the kind of sweeter, boozier aspects of this beer. It is almost a little bit caramelly, but not quite, if that makes sense. There's a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive, biscuity sort of flavour to this one, and that's where the kind of boozy aspects of the beer are really coming out there. It does seem a little bit like a hybrid of this one as a rye IPA, pardon me, and a New England thing. It's a really interesting combination. I mean, I like reviewing beers on the channel that are quite unique, and for me, so far at least, this is quite a unique one, because all of the rye IPAs that I've had before have been more leaning towards the West Coast style, not the big kind of hazy things. I think the last rye IPA that I probably had was, the last one that springs to mind actually was like the Albino Squid Assassin from Brewdog. But I think I maybe had one from another Swedish brewery at some point as well. But this beer, it certainly gets a thumbs up for me. The way the malt base comes across in this one is really nice. I mean, it's quite simple, I think, but it's just really well done. It's one of those beers that's a bit like that for me. You've got the rye at the back of the palate, the wheat in more towards the front. There's maybe one or two little woody undertones in that, in fairness. If you go at the front sides of your palate and move in a little bit, you might just get a little impression of a woody note there, but in the centre of your palate you've got that kind of circle thing, and it's a bit caramelly, a bit biscuity, and then you can feel the rye and the wheat underneath that. I think that what the wheat is doing is smoothing out the rye a little bit, because the rye can often be a little bit cereally and almost spicy and bitter at times, but I think the wheat really smooths it out in this, and it changes the flavour really nicely, and it works very, very well actually. So kudos to Mohawk Brewing for this one, for the malt base. I think that's the thing that really stands out for me about this beer. So yeah, hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of earthiness there. That will be coming, I think, both from the Columbus and partly, I guess, from the Mosaic as well. Mosaic can give you a good little bit of earthiness to the beer, and it's quite distinctive. It's just got a little bit of a dark earthy quality to it. But as you come further forward along the sides of the palate, it smoothens out. You get a little bit of a floral aromatic kind of quality there. It's almost a little bit spicy on the front corners of the palate, but nowhere near as spicy as you're going to get from some beers that use Columbus. And as you go round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. And then behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get that oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that fruity side of things now. So yeah, for me again, the whole fruit side of this beer really is leaning towards those orangey notes, but you get a few more complexities to it actually. So if you go to the very back of that oily bubble, there's a teensy, like really tiny little bit of there's a very small hint of grapefruit, but there's also a little bit of mango in there as well. But as soon as you move further forward from that, very quickly, almost like that, it switches to a kind of orangey flavour, and you'll notice that you will just get a click on, almost like a click on the front of your tongue, and it's big and oily and orangey. And I mean, if you move right forward to the tip of your tongue, it stays like that. Perhaps the further you go into the aftertaste as well, you will get some of the more tropical elements from the Citra pushing their way out, and there's maybe a little teeny bit of a slightly limey note on the very tip of your tongue as well. That's one of the complexities that sometimes you can get from Citra. Sometimes it gives you a bit of a lemon-limey note, sometimes it will give you like lychees and gooseberries and stuff like this. For me, it's a little bit more lemon-limey in this one. Interestingly, Mosaic, I think, I've always found in some cases it can give you a sort of blueberry note on the very tip of your tongue too, but I don't get that in this one. This is a big orangey, fruity IPA, rye IPA in my opinion, and there's just a few other little things to that as well. But I will say, this is a really pretty nice beer. This is, the rye IPA is one, I've sort of, you know, I think I've never appreciated it properly actually. But this one, I think, is really pretty well done. This is probably the first one that I can safely say that I've really enjoyed actually. So again, thumbs up to Mohawk Brewing for this one. The Albino Squid Assassin was good. The barrel-aged version was nice, but I don't think I enjoyed that quite as much as I have this one, to be honest. So yeah. Yeah, it's a solid beer, this. Yeah, it's definitely one. Try it. Just if you've not had too many rye IPAs, have a go at it, and it's interesting to think this is a more modern kind of take on the style, if you like. So yeah, a few reasons for you to try this beer. But yeah, onto the mouthfeel then. I would say that this beer is quite mid-bodied. The carbonation is really smooth. It really has a very kind of New England mouthfeel to it. It's a little bit more oily, right enough, because of the rye. I think the rye, I always remember rye IPAs being a little bit more kind of oily, to be honest, and you do get that out of this beer, but mainly it stays kind of smooth and a little bit creamy. In terms of the hoppy bitterness and things like that, I think this one has to be around 30. I'd be surprised if it was more than that. Could it be 40? I think it's about 30, to be quite honest with you. I'm pretty sure. This is about a 30 IBU beer. It almost seems a little bit less than that because of how juicy and stuff it is. But the malt base, like I say, is really well balanced, nice and smooth, a little bit sweet too, and you've also got some nice oily, fruity qualities to the beer as well. It does get a little bit juicy at points too, but I'd say mainly a nice oily, orangey character coming out of this one. But this is a really, really nice beer. As I say, it's maybe my favourite rye IPA that I've come across so far. So if you're watching and you know some other rye IPAs, recommend them to me, because I'd love to explore this kind of sub-style a little bit more, because I think it is one that I've sort of underappreciated a little bit. But I think this is a really, really nice beer, and it's definitely worth trying if you get the chance, and definitely a cool reintroduction to Mohawk Brewing Company as well. These guys are a very, very capable brewery in my experience, so I look forward to trying some more different beers from them too. But let's leave it at that for this one. The Zoot, a 6.9% rye IPA from Mohawk Brewing Company, a gypsy brewery based in Gothenburg in Sweden. Although I should say their headquarters is up in Täby, where Wicked Wines are. So, or that's where their registered headquarters is, but they do mainly, most of their activity is in Gothenburg. But cool to return to this brewery after such a long time, and I will be keeping an eye out for other beers from these guys. I know there's a stout or something coming out, the Obsidian, in December, so hopefully I can get that, I can get someone to pick that up for me from Systembolaget when I'm away. But yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Mohawk Brewing Company as well. Do give me some other rye IPA recommendations, as I mentioned as well, and check out my social media, and I will catch you guys very soon. Once again, this is the Zoot, a 6.9% rye IPA from Mohawk Brewing Company, a gypsy brewery based in Gothenburg. A really nice reintroduction to the brewery, and a very interesting example, I guess, of a rye IPA as well. A nice modern New England sort of rye IPA. So thank you again for watching my beer reviews. I will catch you guys very soon, and hopefully again very soon with Mohawk as well. Slàinte, skål, cheers.